Unemployed and Afraid acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we have recorded this episode on and of the land where you, the listener, are tuning in from. We would like to pay our respects to elders past, present, and extend our respect to any First Nations, Aboriginal, and Torres Strait Islander people joining us today, acknowledging that this always was and always will be Aboriginal land.
Welcome to Unemployed and Afraid, a podcast that explores the messy middle of being out on your own and starting over with the people who've done it. I'm your host, Kim Katessen. Thank you for being here. Let's get into today's story of starting over. Welcome back to another episode of Unemployed and Afraid, where I get to chat to inspiring guests about the pivots, restarts, and evolutions of their career journeys. My guest today is a bit of a self-starter powerhouse. Azza works full-time for a tech company, but could never quite scratch the itch for entertainment that he developed through a long career in radio. That was until he found the world of drag as Della Katessen, hands down the best drag name in the world, which has now led to a second side hustle, a talent management company dedicated to all the wonderful queer talent of Melbourne. Pretty epic stuff. A quick trigger warning, we swear a bit in this episode, do get a little sweary, and touch on the topic of homophobia and homophobic slurs. So not cool. Mainly, we talk about following your niggles of interest, valuing yourself, being brave enough to jump in when opportunity presents, and a friendship with Danny Minogue, which is pretty cool. And hang tight at the end of the episode for a special discount code for the coolest delicatessen merch. Let's get in and start the chat. Today's guest simply cannot be summarized by one title or by one name. I'm joined by Aaron Azza, a communications and business integration expert and founder of Perfectly Queer, a brand new talent agency dedicated to celebrating and uplifting all of the fabulously diverse queer talent in Naarm, Melbourne. Azza is also Della, full name Della Katessen, the drag queen who is fabulous mix of your favourite auntie, your sassy work wife, your bestie who loves the champagne with breakfast, and your quirky neighbour who just cannot keep her nose out of everybody else's business. Della delivers the most fabulous online events to the world, and she's now back in real life too, which is bloody awesome for everybody in Melbourne. This guest is an innovator, someone who certainly cannot be described as change adverse. Azza is a guest who is doing his dream chasing just a little differently than some of our previous guests, as he's balancing his self-discovery and entrepreneurship alongside a full-time gig. He's also very funny on the old TikTok, clocking up a number of million view vids. Azza, welcome to the pod.
Thanks for having me, Kim.
Oh, it's so nice to have you. I really laughed a lot at your TikTok video. It was quite deep. It was one where somebody was giving like a quarantine walkthrough of their hotel, and you came in from the bottom and just told them to shut the fuck up. And I just thought it was fucking hilarious. So excuse my swearing. We're like 2 seconds in and I'm already having to do a swear warning. It was funny.
No, it's natural. People around me just love a good curse. Yes. And you know what? I got a little bit roasted by the public for that one. Like, a lot of people loved it, but a lot of people were like, give her a break. She's just... And I'm like, oh, go away. God, there's just too many people out in the world that just want to cancel you or just like looking for an excuse to call you out on doing something. I'm just like, if you don't have a sense of humor, this is not the channel for you. You know what I mean? Or if you can't take a joke, or if you can't see through my absolutely thick veneer of sarcasm, then just go away.
I love that. That's really a perfect intro to you. We've kind of broken the ice already about you and your fun, but to do a more official icebreaker, how would your cute little dogs, Gidget and Penny, describe you?
As the dickhead that feeds them. Like, I'm always like, I'm the absolute moron that is paying their rent and, picking up their shit. But I guess to probably answer the question the way that you intended me to answer it, someone who recently is quite emotional and stressed and things like that, with lots of, plates in the air, balls in the air, all that kind of stuff, but very caring, fun, funny, warm, because they like to sit on me all the time. like physically warm body. And also just someone who, much to their own misery sometimes, puts other people first all the time, including Gidget and Penny. Well, especially Gidget and Penny, you know what I mean? Like, the amount of times I've had an afternoon nap and woken up with like a neck that is almost hanging on by a piece of skin because I'm trying to lay in a way because the dogs are comfortable and making sure that they're warm and things like that is real. Like, that happens more often than I care to admit, but my chiropractor is happy for me to come in every week and get that sorted out.
And maybe a bit of a canine reflection of how you treat your friends and family and colleagues, everyone around you, putting them first, hey?
Yeah, totally. It's always on paper a really lovely quality to have, and I'm proud of it. But you know, like, I think about those shitty job interview questions that you often get asked, like, what's your most positive quality? What's your most negative quality? And I guess it's a positive and a negative, you know, putting people first all the time. And I mean, it's fine, but I guess there has to be a point where you need to be a little bit more selfish and work yourself into that own equation, which I'm not the best at because, like that intro suggests, I have a lot of distractions. I have a lot of distracting me from me, which I guess is my next challenge, I guess. After I finish moving house and all that kind of stuff, because that's also happening, I want to focus on me again.
Thinking of you and your life, I'm curious, what did it look like before Della came onto the scene?
It was a little bleak. It was a little dark. Like, my full-time day job, I work for a tech company that's based in America, and I do a lot of really nerdy stuff. And I mean, I'm fine with that because deep down I'm a huge nerd. I love statistics and data, but I had nothing adding color to my life. I missed radio so much because I spent 12, 13 years in that industry. That industry helped me discover who I am, who I want to be. It taught me about what branding is and self-branding and how important that is. It also helped me make some great lifelong friends, present company included, Kim. You know, and I left that industry and moved to Melbourne thinking, oh yeah, I'll just get another job in radio and hit the reset button and start it all again. But I was like, actually, I want a little break from things, because also at the same time, radio was quite traumatic as well. Like, it was very, like, there's nothing like putting yourself out there, especially as a younger gay guy. I would get people calling me up saying faggot or homo or poof and then hanging up, or like, you know, you get all that. You do develop a very thick skin. I certainly had bosses that said really terrible things to me, disguised as feedback, but just delivered terribly. And also many people that would say something terrible and go, it's just a joke. You know, you love making jokes. You can take a joke and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but joking about someone's sexuality, their weight, their appearance, or any of that kind of stuff, that's not a joke. So I came to Melbourne and I was like, I really miss radio. I miss radio. I want to get back into radio. And there's still parts of me that feels that way. But I miss the feeling of radio. I don't miss the industry. The industry has also changed a lot. Like, I would get in, I know that I would walk into a radio station now and I could do anything because I was doing everything at one stage and I would hate it. Like, I know that for a fact, but it doesn't matter how many times I tell myself that, I still am like, no, I miss it, because it was just an industry that I just knew everything about. And there was some real familiarity there. My life before Della was just this constant chase, or this constant battle of, wow, I'm doing things that I enjoy, because I started working for Apple, and I found myself in a place where I could be like, have great attention to detail. I could meet really fabulous people. Well, I knew a lot about the product and all that kind of stuff, so it satisfied all of those things for me. But there was still something missing. There was still an element of performance or an element of entertainment, you know, the thrill of live radio or those kinds of things that I really missed. So I was struggling because I couldn't get any work, even freelancing or anything like that, in Melbourne radio. And mind you, I was really busy. I wasn't really trying that hard. I wasn't doing the rock up and have a chat to the program director, and I was a bit more lazy about it. But I wanted to satisfy all those things and didn't know how to do it. And one day, an opportunity at my, I left Apple and started at this tech company, and they were just like, oh, hey, do you want to, we know that you used to work in radio and stuff like that. Do you want to host our Christmas party? Like our Christmas in July party? And I'm like, yeah, I'd love to. But at that time, I was like barely 6 months into the role. I hadn't even passed probation. And also I knew, and I discovered very quickly that people in the tech sphere were quite sensitive, were quite, I want to say keyboard warriors, but I don't want that to have a negative connotation or that kind of stuff. Like I went from a place where I didn't really have to be so careful about what I said and how I said it, apart from, swearing on air and all that kind of stuff. But I could very much be me to like, oh, I'm new at this place. I haven't passed probation. I still have people to meet, and I'm conscious of my brand and all that kind of stuff. Can I do it as a? And I was like, I think I can, but I don't think I want to. So no shit. A week before the gig, I spoke to the organizer, who I still work with today, and I was like, hey, random, I'm thinking of doing it in drag. And she's just like, oh my God, yes, we would love that. So a super supportive company, and I had that safety net there. So I was very fortunate. And it was sort of almost like my journey into radio. My first gig, apart from volunteering at a radio station, was in a capital city. I worked at Nova, when they launched, and Mix and all that kind of stuff. I didn't have to go out to regional, to Wagga Wagga, to go work somewhere for 6 months. So I got to do my first drag gig in a room full of people that I knew, well, half knew, and was a very safe, comfortable environment. And the rest is her story. So it was like it's going to go one of two ways. It's going to go really, 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 really well, or really, 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 really bad. There will be no in between, but it went so incredibly well that, it took off from there, and it really scratched a huge itch for me. And yeah, I'm so grateful for that moment, and I'll never forget it. And it's only grown and taken off from there. And when I say it, I mean Della.
She is fabulous. Did you have the name Della Katessen for that gig, or did that come later?
The name I had for about 12 or 13 years. And when people randomly are like, what's your porn name? The way you get your street name and your first pet and all that kind of stuff. Or the very first season of RuPaul's Drag Race, when it came out, it was like, it aired on SBS at like 11:30 at night. And I remember seeing it one night and going, what is this? Oh my God, it was so tacky and so stupid that of course I loved it. I ate it. This is in the era of Big Brother, those kinds of things where reality TV was just so moreish. I couldn't get enough of it. Like we all wanted to be voyeuristic and look at other people's lives and all that kind of stuff and compare ourselves to other people on TV. And I was like, drag queens, oh my God, yeah, I've heard about drag queens and whatever. And you would go to the RuPaul's Drag Race website, and there was like a drag name generator. You pressed a button and these two like wheels, like as if it was a poker machine, would spin up and would give you a first and last name. And I did it, and it came up with Della Katessen. And I was like, that is the coolest name. And it always just stuck in the back of my head. And I would often say it, if I'd met a drag queen or whatever, I'd be like, oh yeah, my drag name's Della Katessen. And people were just like, it is so good. I love it. I like, all that kind of stuff. And I love a pun. I love a connotation. And you don't see a lot of drag names that are real punny anymore. A lot of them are a bit more new age and all that kind of stuff. But I love that style of drag, that pun, that taking the piss out of themselves, all that kind of stuff. And so that was how Della was born. Many, many influences like Mrs. Doubtfire, Karen Walker from Will and Grace, Divine, a very famous drag queen, B. Arthur, Dorothy from the Golden Girls. Yeah. I've got a collage of all of my influences. Like Robin Williams is just such a huge influence to me and part of my life. And I still get super emotional about Robin Williams not being on this planet, but was so glad to have shared the oxygen of the earth at the same time as Robin Williams for a period of my life. But yeah, lots of motivators. My mum, of course, I had the name, but the character came to life for all of those things. And she's very much, I very much see her as a character, which is a lot of fun. And that's why I try and keep my Instagram a bit, like a lot of drag queens, they film a lot of stuff as a boy, them out of drag and stuff like that. And I try to keep Della's as much on drag as I can. If not, I use a ridiculous filter. to hide the fact that I'm not in drag and stuff like that. So yeah.
She's very much, you having known you for a long time, she is so much of you, your humor and just your warmth, but you're like, I'm gonna cut you down with my lols in the nicest of ways.
Oh, totally. It's just like
Della
Della can like throw an insult at someone and they'll laugh and they're like, oh my God, that's so funny. But hang on a second. Oh, okay. But no, it's all done in a very irreverent way, a very self-deprecating way. Funnily enough, a lot of Nova taught me that, because that's when Nova first launched, they were all about that. We ran our first competition on air. It was the Wheelie Bin of Fortune. And it was just like this, people are like, what? How come you're not doing a secret sound, or you're not doing a whatever? Like, it was just totally always taking the piss out of itself. Always. And I loved that. I got into a lot of the script writing and the imaging for the radio station. I thrived in that. So I get a lot of that. You know, you don't work somewhere for like 5-6 years, whatever it was when I was at Nova. Those qualities become a part of you. So I do really enjoy my time as Della, but I also enjoy my time away from Della and like, because it's exhausting. It is totally exhausting. I mean, I do a 1-hour Zoom gig and sometimes I get off it and I'm just staring at the screen for the next 20 minutes because I'm just like, whew. Because if it's a tough crowd and you're having to kind of like get energy out of them, and also doing stuff on Zoom is very different to in person. It's exhausting. You're talking the whole time and you've got to keep the momentum happening and all that kind of stuff. Because if you lull, or you're like, oh, I'm bored, or I'm not going to talk, you know, the whole room can feel it and sense it. So it's nice to switch off.
That must be a huge challenge. We were talking about that prior to recording, just about the importance of introvert time and, you know, getting that sense of self away from, you know, extroverting the energy. Maybe not so important for everybody, but certainly for both you and I, introvert time is really important. And so how do you manage that extroversion that you have with Della?
I'm very conscious of boundaries, and a reason why I was able to start Perfectly Queer is, you know, one of the reasons, there's many, but one of the main ones was that I would get a lot of gigs or inquiries through my website because people saw me on a Zoom or saw me doing a charity thing, or not to name drop, but the couple of times that I've been on TV and things like that.
You can name drop all you like. You have to celebrate that.
That's right. Danny Minogue, if you're listening, she's a dear friend of mine, but you know, we'll go into that later.
Love it.
That I would get stuff that would come through and I'd be like, it's not for me. It's hens parties or those kinds of things. Sure, I can do them, and sure, I would do a great job at them. And there are other queens that specialize in those things and love those gigs. So I really have to set boundaries with Della. When the Zoom, online Zoom things that were happening, people were like, oh, can we get you tomorrow at 2 p.m? Can we get you this afternoon at 6 p.m? And I'm like, no. And I just got really good at saying no. And I still am very good at saying no, especially when it comes to people trying to negotiate the rate of Della, the time and money aspect of it. I give zero shits about that. I'd rather not get a red cent than get paid cheap to do a gig. I had to very early on realize that, okay, if I'm going to do the online gigs, if someone books me for a Friday afternoon, I'll do gigs either side of that. I'm not doing drag more than 2 days in a row. I'm not going to do drag more than 3 times in one whole week. Like, I really set boundaries around it, and I just don't budge from that. And it's funny because when someone's like, oh, can we have you for Friday at 4 p.m? I'd be like, no, but you can have me next Thursday at 6:30 p.m. They're like, okay. You know, that if they want it, they'll make it work. And so I just got really good at that early on in the piece and just made sure also that I have a room and a space that is all Della stuff and I can close the door. That was very important for me, to be able to shut it, to turn it off, and all that kind of stuff is very important.
Of course, it's, you know, working from home, so many of us experience now, is having that separation is so hard to achieve. So I love that you've set those boundaries. Were your online events part of a COVID pivot, or were you already doing those?
So the funny thing is like, I did that, my first Della gig as the work Christmas party, the Christmas in July party. Then I do a lot of work with this charity called St. Kilda Mums. They were having their annual Mother's Day luncheon. So the first gig was in July. Their Mother's Day luncheon was in May the following year. I was like, hey, should I rock up in drag? Would you like it if I came as Della? Because our work was the major sponsor of this event. So we actually had some microphone time with a captive audience of 600-ish women. So it was a fairly big gig. And again, work had asked me if I could do that presentation. We literally had 3 minutes. We were given 3 minutes of time. And they're like, you know, you can do a PowerPoint presentation or whatever to talk about Zendesk, and which is the company I work for, and all that major sponsorship and the involvement with St Kilda Mums, all that kind of stuff. And I was like, again, why don't I do it in drag? Why don't I have fun with it? Because it's on brand with the company that I work for as well. They like to take the piss out of themselves a lot. And I just thought, and what a great, again, safe space for me to do something fun. And so I rock up to the event in full drag, and these women are like, oh my God, can I take photos with you? Like all the people there were just obsessed, which was fabulous. But then I was just like, oh my God, this is quite overwhelming and quite exhausting, because there were so many people that wanted to have photos with me and where are you from? What's your name? And all this kind of stuff. And then I got to do my little bit and it just went so well. From that came bookings, inquiries, a huge social media gathering and following. Just from that one event. And I got asked to do a couple of in-person events and I did them. Then COVID came and like Della had been sitting in, for lack of better terminology, in the closet for months and months and months. And COVID came and I was living in this building in Richmond in Victoria here, like right next door to IKEA, which was great because I'm obsessed with IKEA. So I'd go there all the time and just people watch. And it was a weird setup building where my balcony, I could see that, like there was two massive buildings, but they were kind of facing each other. So I could see all the people and it was like watching The Sims or something. You see everyone in their houses and what they're doing and all that kind of stuff. And when the pandemic first hit and we sort of got orders to stay at home and lockdown and wearing masks and like everyone was super confused. And we all kind of freaked out a bit. And I could just see that there were lots of people that were quite nervous, upset, felt weird. All the shops were starting to shut, like IKEA was closing down, all that. And people were like, wow, this is serious. And I remember one day we had a Facebook group. I just posted a message on there going, hey, I'm thinking of doing a trivia night. Would anyone be interested? And everyone's like, yes, let's do it. So just as Azza. So I'm like, I was put some questions together. Then in true typical me fashion, on the day I was like, I'll do it in drag. I'll do it as Della. How fun would that be? I literally got into drag that day. I could see it's like 30, 40, 50, 60 people starting in, and I just turned my camera on and I'm in full drag and everyone's like, like the reactions. I do think I have a recording of it somewhere, was just priceless, was just so great. And everyone was like, oh my God, I'm like, hi darlings, I'm Della. And you know, here's my social media and whatever. And I had sort of rigged up a laptop, a camera, some shitty lighting, my other work laptop, my iPad. Like I had this full suite of bullshit in front of me and distractions. And I was shitting myself the whole night because I'm just like, you know, because I wanted to be on character, on brand, all that kind of stuff and not be too worried about technology. But then the realization came, I'm like, oh my God, Della can be really bad with technology. Like Azza is great, but Della, like that would be really fun and a character pivot where she's like, oh, what button do I press? And accidentally screen sharing like a porn screen, like Pornhub comes up on the screen. It's like, oh my God, I've shared my wrong screen. So sorry. You know, all that kind of stuff. I still use those jokes today. I have it much more streamlined. Like I've got a lot less bits in front of me. But from that, someone contacted me and that lived in the building was like, hey, would you do my friend's 21st birthday party? We're all in lockdown. We have to do something remote. Would you do that? And I'm like, sure. Then at the 21st, someone was like, hey, would you consider doing a work thing? And I'm like, sure. And I just started saying yes. And from all of that, all of the events that I've done, and in the last, well, I guess, 18 months of COVID, I've probably done in excess of 200. And they've all been word of mouth, completely word of mouth. I haven't advertised a single thing, apart from like me doing a story on my Instagram going, you can book me on my website, whatever. All word of mouth. And like I did Google, Twitter, Atlassian, Mattel, like the makers of Barbie, obviously my company Zendesk. I've done so many incredible companies. I've got all the logos on my website and it still blows me away that I've been able to entertain 5 people, let alone thousands of people through the pandemic. And it turned out to be something that I really needed, which was an opportunity to see people, to interact with people, to have some fun, to have some purpose during lockdown as well. Almost like it was a motivator to get out of bed and to do it all again the next day or whatever. So yeah, that's how that happened. It was weird.
Wow.
It was like Della, I mean, wasn't doing a lot of shit, just doing the odd event every 4 or 5 months. And then suddenly I'm doing weekly online gigs. And I did some ones where anyone could come along and it was raising money for charities. I did like a Movember one, did one that raised a whole heap of money just for people in the drag community here in Melbourne. I just donated it. I just chucked $100 in a whole heap of people's PayPal accounts, like drag queens that had lost work through the pandemic. I worked it out. I ended up donating to the queer community of Melbourne over $7,000 during the first lockdown. During the second lockdown, I was like, you can fight for yourselves. But no, I still was like, how can I help? Let me help. And so, another reason why Perfectly Queer was born as well, just that natural, I was going to say need, but just the natural love that I have for helping people out. And I could see a lot of people were struggling and I'm like, it's okay to not be okay. And if you're struggling, let me know. And there were a few queens that were doing some great things. There's another drag queen in Melbourne. Her name's Lisa Mann. And she was just like, if you have a bill that you can't pay, let me know and I'll pay it for you. And these kinds of things. And the community really came together and we're just doing some great things. So I was glad to be a part of that.
That's so brilliant. And hearing you tell the story like this, apart from knowing you, I didn't know this story. And I can see so directly how that little spark of, I miss the energy of radio. I miss being able to perform in some way. And these little signs from the universe that have led you onto this path to unravel this. I imagine that when you started getting those inklings about the passion of radio that was stirring, you couldn't have imagined it would have led you here.
No,
That's
God,
wonderful.
no. It's a different way of thinking because, it takes me 3 hours to get ready. If there's an in-person gig, even longer because, tights. So it's not like I can just turn it on. Like I many times in the radio station, I would just waltz in my pajamas. Barely even that sometimes. Like they had holes in them. And I remember coming into the station one day and I wasn't even wearing shoes. And I would do on-air shifts and it was fine. With Della, it's the complete opposite, where it's like all done up and it's the whole thing. But that was really hard for me at first, knowing that the hosting side of things, I had no problems about it. It was putting on a mask. It was putting on learning how to do makeup. I found that at first a very frustrating experience because I didn't practice enough. I didn't give it enough time. Then I started to enjoy it. I don't know what happened, but there was a point where I was like, you know what? I'm just going to crank my music. I'm going to give myself more time and I'm going to trial and error. I've sort of worked out the products that work for me, products that don't work for me and stuff like that. And I just play around. Every time I put on a face, I do something different. I try a new product or something like that. And it's all about self-discovery and just what works for this drag queen here doesn't work for this drag queen there. And yeah, I got really frustrated with that process, but just pivoted it and turned it into a pre-party for myself, have a couple of wines. And, I was like, no one really cares, really, because people are there to see Della. And Della, sure, Della is Azza, but, the gish on the face and stuff like that, no one's there to critique my makeup. I'm not part of a drag competition or anything like that. We're just there to have fun. But it's expensive.
I bet it is.
But it's fun. But I'm not the one to, on my days off, practice makeup or do any of that kind of stuff. I certainly buy a lot of it and I'm just like, oh yeah, I'll chuck that in the drawer. We'll deal with that next gig. We'll try it out then. But for a lot of queens starting out, it's the opposite, where they practicing their makeup, and they perfect their makeup, but they don't have the platform to be able to perform or to entertain or to host things. I'm fortunate that I have had that through my many years in radio. It was just the other side of things. It's not, I also had to just let go of perfection. So I just, everything that I want to do, I want to execute it flawlessly. And that's the radio that comes into me that kind of kills me a bit, is oh, you're on air on a live radio show. You're hosting a live radio show. You've got one chance. Don't stuff it up. that was hard for me to let go of that because I'm like, oh, this eyebrow needs to be perfect. I can't go on unless it's perfect. I just had to let go. And I think that was the pivotal moment. As soon as I let go of perfection, I started to enjoy it and I started to have fun with it and I started to experiment. And then I discovered Botox, which now is another great friend of mine because I've got this massive forehead. This is real estate. This is my five head. This is my Della real estate. When you got to paint eyebrows on, I can't have that shit moving. So yeah, that's been my next best friend in life of late.
Brilliant. There's a lot of lessons in there, Botox aside, about just starting where you are, having a little bit of fun with it and allowing things to roll out how they need to and enjoying the journey and, not being afraid to suck a little bit at something brand new, like putting on a full face of makeup and not having all the answers to exactly how it's going to go and just allowing it to roll out. It's super inspiring, and maybe I should try a little bit harder with my makeup too. You're inspiring me around that.
No, please don't. You know what? Every woman wants to come out of the woodwork and be like, oh, I wish you could do my makeup. Even my mother. And I'm like, I don't know if you're familiar with The Simpsons, but if you ever saw the episode where Homer gets the
the gun, the makeup
gun, yeah, and sets it to whore, I'm like, that's what you're going to look like, Mum. I said, like, I honestly use 10 times more eyeshadow than any woman would ever use, and sure, I could dull it down, but I think of it as like it's clown makeup. Literally, some of the stuff that I have is called clown white. Like, it has clown in the title of it. It's clown makeup, but you put it on in a feminine, in a pretty kind of fashion. And I'm like, I just wish people would stop asking me to do their makeup because it's the last thing that I want to do. I did have a friend that asked me, he's never seen himself in drag, but he's always been fascinated with it. Would I do it? And I did. And that was fun. Like, if someone wanted me to put them in drag, sure. But I ain't putting your makeup on to go down to the restaurant at night. No, because people are going to be like, oh dear, wrong place, honey.
Maybe there's a market for makeup toots with Della that's just you doing your own and you can just like watch and try it on yourself.
Work. Like, we've had all these virtual events and virtual Christmas parties. I did a lip tutorial and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, done some little things, and it is funny how many people, and every drag queen will tell you that they always get asked.
Well, we're going to have, I asked you to send me some of your favourite photos so that I could share. So I cannot wait to share those because the makeup is absolutely brilliant. So
it's a journey, but I mean, I look at them and I'm like, oh my God. Look at what did you do there? But
don't we all think that about ourselves though? Produce any kind of work and think it's awful, but somebody else would be like, wow, that's the best thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, but glitter covers everything.
And it sticks to everything.
Yeah, it sticks to everything. But that's my theme in life. It's just like, what's the problem here? Just add a touch of glitter and let's just move on.
Amen. And I can start to see how things evolved for you in your journey to the creation of Perfectly Queer, which is just such a brilliant extension of what you were already doing. But before I take those words out of your mouth, tell me how that came to be and what that experience was like for you.
Well, I had been sitting on it since mid-2019, believe it or not, an idea of like a talent agency that was just dedicated to queer people. That was it. But just queer talent overall. Like, of course, there's a big element of drag, but musicians, acrobats, wedding celebrants, any kind of queer talent. Because too often queer people, either in some companies, they're like the token. It's just like, oh, it's Pride Month. Let's wheel out the queer employee to juggle in front of us. Or it's still a funny world, when it comes to how queer people are treated. Still a lot of fighting for rights. There's still a lot of inequality issues. There's still a lot of that kind of stuff. And I have not thus far had a person that has met Della that maybe wasn't, I've never been to a drag show. I've never done this kind of thing, in that kind of camp, that has not come out of it having such a great time and really broken down a lot of barriers and really like broken down the walls of, what society has put up over years and years and years with the way that queer people get treated. So I had this idea for a talent agency. I got a name, I bought the domains, I designed a logo, I did absolutely everything. And I just sat on it for ages. And I was like, when's going to be the right time? Because that's what I always stress about as well. I'm like, when is it going to be the right time? When's it the right time to post an Instagram post or to do a story or all that kind of bullshit, which, you know what? there isn't a right time. You're just going to do it, right?
Yeah.
Which, ironically, in the many, many years that I spoke about moving to Melbourne when I lived in Adelaide, it was a dear friend of mine that actually said to me, you know what? Just move. We're so sick of hearing you talk about it. There's never going to be a right time. And I literally the week after I moved to Melbourne, we just got in the car and drove. So I was waiting for the right time for this agency idea. And you know, there were lots of distractions, lots of stuff going on with work. Plus, you know, pandemic happened shortly after that. So I got into the rhythm of doing these things and the events that were coming my way, I was just pretty much saying yes to all of them. There's another drag queen in Melbourne, her name's Sasha Starr. We partnered with each other, and when I couldn't do a gig, I'd give it to her. When she couldn't do one, she'd give it to me. We even would help each other out on certain events, like, because some of these events, there's like 200, 300 people on the Zoom, and you can't control that if you're hosting it. So I would just sit in the background of Sasha's and press all the buttons, like move the Zoom screens and do all that kind of stuff. And she would do the same for me with certain events and stuff where there was big capacity and big budgets. So, like 3 months ago or so, as the world started to, as Melbourne started to open up again and all that kind of stuff, I was like, wow, shit, all these poor assholes that have wanted to get married for the last 2 years, here we go. They're all coming out of the woodwork and everyone wants a hens party. And I was getting maybe 7 to 15 requests a week to do hens parties. And like people booking like February, March next year, like ages away. And I would just hand them all off. I'm like, hey, this is the great opportunity that you have to start the business. And so I went to go and launch everything. And I was like, oh, I better go and register the business name. And some motherfucker stole my business name. Well, didn't steal it. They just registered it, but only March this year. So I was literally like a few months late of getting that. So there's some other place in Sydney. I won't tell you what the name is because it doesn't matter. But then I was like, well, I love a pun, and perfectly queer came up. You know, like, let's make things perfectly queer. And it just fits so much better. So I, you know, again, everything happens for a reason, right? But me finding a name, making a logo and building a website, that was done within 24 hours. Like, I don't fuck around. I just did it. And I'm like, again, this goes back to the earlier sort of premise. I'm like, it doesn't have to be perfect for it to have traction. Like, get it out there and then let's, you know, mold it into what it needs to be. So at first I needed to find people that were on board, like talent. So I just built a page and did a verbal vomit of what my ideas were, how I was thinking about the business, and how I just wanted to be really transparent as well, because I've also had the opportunity to sign up with certain agencies, talent agencies and stuff like that. And I've rejected them all because it is this archaic 1960s, sign this contract, oh, we own you, you know, kind of bullshit for ages. I'm not interested in that. I just want to find queer people work. I want them to share the social media posts that I post, and that's it. Like, you know, and you are going to get 95%, if not more, of the fee that I go in and negotiate for you anyway. Because this is the funny thing, is like, I can sell Della. I do it all the time. God, I did it to Danny Minogue. Danny fucking Minogue. I met her and I'm like, what are you doing for your 50th this year? I know you're turning 50. And she's like, oh, nothing. And I said, you need to have Della hosting your birthday party. What happens? Della hosts her birthday party. Like, it happened.
That's brilliant.
But I can't do that for Azza. Like, I've never been able to be like, oh, like me in a job interview, or me just like negotiating with these real estate agents and banks at the moment. I'm like, it's okay. Like, I'll live in a shoebox. It's fine. But if it's Della, I'm like, nah, she's not doing that gig. Not paying enough. Nah, she's not doing that gig. It's too late. Too far away. Blah, blah, blah. Whatever the thing is, I can do that. So I'm now doing that for my talent. Like, I say this now, but it's like, it's actually easy for me. Like, I've always been able to negotiate. Two of my favorite sayings, one of them is no is always negotiable, and the other I've forgotten, but it will come to me. But I always believe that you should be paid what you're worth. And the other thing with queer people, being marginalized and feeling grateful for, oh, I'm getting work at this straight bar or something like that, so I will accept a couple of drink vouchers as payment. Not good enough. Fuck that. Because tomorrow you'll go and book some 1990s fucking band that's still coked out on their from the 90s to come in and play a few off-tune songs, and you'll pay them $5,000 without even batting an eyelid. And that's not fair, because you think about travel, time getting ready, travel back home, plus the time of the gig. Some of these events are 8 hours for these queens. Yeah, I can do that. I can negotiate for other people, and I'll be like, that's fine. And, you know, because I also know what the more experienced queens in Australia get paid, or should be getting paid. So if they don't like what I'm suggesting, they'll go and ask them, and then find out that they're asking for more, or you know, the same price, and they'll end up coming back anyway. So it's a bit of that. So Perfectly Queer got started because of all these barrage of hens parties. I'm like, you know, I've handed off thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars of hens parties, which is fine. Again, I'm happy to support the queer community here in Melbourne in any way, shape or form, but I'm like, I want to directly support control, I hate that word, but like do it in my own terms and uplift, and also be a little bit more involved in this, because I'm in the process now of organising like proper insurance. So every queen that gets booked through me, or any talent that gets booked through me, they'll have insurance when they go out and do the gig and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, in a very short time, like a little bit over a month, it's done really well. It's done more than I expected it to do on the tail end of a really shitty year. But I really, you know, I can't wait to uplift and celebrate, you know, our trans community, our gender diverse community, whether it's having someone come and speak at your office for a Pride event, whether it's having a saxophonist to play for your corporate party in February 14 for Valentine's Day. You know, we want a beautiful queer musician to play Careless Whisper on saxophone. Oh, what a dream. I'll sort it out. And it's very indicative of me as well, that someone will come to me and be like, hey, can I have this? And I'll go, yep. And then I go, shit, I've got to find someone now. But, you know, I can do that. I can walk in a room of people and I'll find talent. And all I ask for is, you know, tag me on Instagram, and you know, I had some business cards printed that
Very
on
cute.
the back, it just has a QR code.
Perfect.
And so all the talent has these, and they just hand them out. And at the moment, it goes to like our contact page. But in future, there'll be like talent pages, there'll be prizes, there'll be random things. I can do whatever I want with that code. You know, really making it fun and different, and just stepping away from the norms of what talent agencies have become. And it's not a place where you go and find a model that's going to stand in front of your shop for 8 hours of the day. Sure, I could do that if you wanted to, but I want it to be really exciting and to celebrate the beautiful queer people that are everywhere. You know, we think that, oh no, they only pop out around Mardi Gras. They're everywhere, God damn it. And they're running a lot of your straight bloody weddings. You know?
It sounds just like the most perfect business role for you to take. I can see how beautifully it's aligned, and I really love hearing that it has aligned from a need and something that you've noticed, and something that you can give back, that, you know, all started back there from an inkling. Making that your third thing in your armor of employment is a big thing to take on. What made you keep your regular job and your 2x side hustles?
At the moment, it's just security. There is, especially right now, I've got applications in with the banks for loans of mortgages, and the full-time job is necessary for security and stuff. But I like that safety net. I like that stability, and my work's always been flexible.
Were you nervous to tell your employer that you had this second side hustle coming up?
No, because I didn't even tell them. Because for me, it's
Like that.
for me, it really does. The majority of it happens outside of, quote, 9 to 5. But also, fuck, the world's changed. And if you're not a company, or you're not a person that if you are a company, or you are a person that believes that work happens between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m., you can fuck off back to 1990. We don't need you no more. For my day job, I work for an American company. So Mondays, it's very quiet. It's their Sunday, you know, but that also means that Saturday can be a bit noisy because it's their Friday, because they're finishing up their week. So do I get messages or emails on a Saturday? Yeah. Do I reply to them? Yeah. Do I have to? No. But is it easier for me to just live my life and get shit done? Yeah. Do I start my days often at 7 a.m., logging in and having meetings and stuff with my day job? Yeah. Do I sometimes reply to emails at 11 p.m. because I got a colleague that's in Dublin? Yeah. So it's all over the place. And at the end of the day, my output of work is always over and above, and I'm able to do it. Like, I wouldn't have taken on the responsibility if I didn't have the bandwidth. Right now, the bandwidth is pushed because I'm dealing with moving house and all that kind of bullshit. But aside from that, it's fine. And again, the flawless execution thing is very important to me. So when I set up all this stuff, from the business cards to the website, I've just made it super user-friendly and semi-automated. So someone reaches out to me with an inquiry, and if I need to know like who, what, when, where, and why, and they've just asked me like, hey, I need you for a hens party, I will hit a button that will reply to them and say, when, why, da, da, da. You know what I mean? Like, it asks them all those questions, and I really don't have to get my brain or thinking involved until it's time to confirm it. So that whole back and forth is just me pressing a couple of buttons, and I really don't think about it. So that's the perfectly queer side of things. As far as talent reaching out to me, yeah, we have a little bit more of a negotiation, but I love people. So I get to meet someone, I get to have a chat, and I can do that at any time. And a lot of these queer people also have 9-to-5 jobs as well. So not a lot's happening in the work week apart from my job anyway. But we'll see how that goes next year. And if it does, I want to have conversations where maybe I work a 4-day week with my 9-to-5. I don't know. I think that work has changed. Time has changed. It's like more task focused. Like, let's get the tasks done. As long as it doesn't exceed your working hours, that should be fine. That should be enough.
What I love about everything that you have shared today is there's a practice in yoga of non-attachment. So non-attachment to things, to outcomes, to evolutions. And it's a very, very difficult thing for most people to achieve for themselves, as you have described. What I love is you seem to have found a way to unattach yourself from the outcome and able to achieve these amazing things that you're achieving through, having Della be the personality that does a lot of these actions for you, through supporting other people and taking yourself out of the equation. It's a really interesting way. And there's a lot of learnings in there for people to be able to look at how they can take themselves out of it in some way and get out of their own way and just do these amazing things that you want to do in life. It's really cool.
Is it a little bit multiple personality disorder? Probably. Do I have a good therapist? Yes. But no, I see what you're saying. But it's also like, yeah, it's just my sort of way of, because I guess when I was in radio, that was a persona as well. I didn't go around being like, oh my God, I love that new Britney Spears song. It's Nova 919. Like I didn't go around talking like that. I didn't do, so that was a performance kind of thing as well. So to acknowledge the presence of different personas in the way that I fly by with multiple strings in my bow, I think is been important for me. But also just the ability to acknowledge if something's not working, that's okay.
Yeah.
Just as okay as if something isn't working. And like, can we pivot? Can we reinvent? Or do we just cut it? Like, it's not like Apple or any company in the world has ever done something that hasn't worked. It's, again, just being a little bit more realistic. And sometimes I'm like, would Della want to do this gig? No. Would Azza be okay with this product being put out there with his name attached to it? No. It's all well and good for now, but I also appreciate the fact that, like, if Perfectly Queer grows and I need to get people on board, how do I let go? I think about those kinds of things as well. Because not that I'm a control freak. I know I said the word control earlier, and I'm annoyed that I said that word, but like, I'm not a control freak or anything like that. But sometimes it's just easier if I get it done because I know it's done the right way. I'm also conscious of that side of things as well. Down the future, will I have to change the way I think about things? Yeah. Will I have to step back a bit more and just be okay with that? Yeah. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Your level of comfort with, being able to change, being able to pivot, being able to do something new is super fun. It's, something that we can all have learnt over the last, 18 months or so. So good on you for going after the stuff that triggers you, that shows you, a little bit of a light, something, a bit of a pathway to something more for yourself. Keep doing it, keep creating new things. I reckon you can squeeze another business in there. Why not?
Yeah, totally.
So
don't think that I haven't spent 40 fucking years on this planet and haven't learned 10 times more about how I don't want to do things. How I don't want to, I've seen many a drag queen. I'm like, oh God, Della would never do that. I would never perform at that venue. I would never do that, and it's not to be pretentious, but again, it's about respecting the brand. It's about respecting the character and respecting myself at the end of the day. I use the phrase every now and again, I'm too old for that shit. I've been there and I've done that. I don't need to do death drops or fancy splits or high kicks on the bar at 3 a.m. in the gay club and things like that. I don't need to do all that kind of stuff. And it's funny because that's been the drag industry for such a long time that sometimes it's can I even call myself a drag queen? Well, according to a lot of other drag queens in Melbourne, no, because I haven't done those things, but I am carving out a path for myself there, patting myself in the back and acknowledging the fact that I've been really successful in doing that, where a lot of people, drag queens in particular, just sort of waited for the clubs to reopen and 18 months later are surprised that they haven't got their gig back because the clubs can only be at 20% capacity or whatever it may be. So I'm glad that I did that. I love that. But yeah, you get to a certain stage in your life that I'm just rid of bullshit. If I smell any bullshit, whether it's from myself as well or from even family, friends, other businesses, colleagues, what I'm being told in my 9 to 5, I'm saying something. I'm calling it out. I'm the first to go bullshit. And that's, for me, a level of self-respect. I'm respecting myself. I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, that's great. Oh my God, I love the fact that you are doing this for us because you're supporting the queer community. No, you're whacking it on your LinkedIn page the minute that you do it and you're chest beating and going, look at us, we're supporting the queer community, whatever. And I'm like, here we go. I can smell bullshit a mile off, and that doesn't exclude me in that equation as well.
And it's just something that I think takes that time, doesn't it, to learn, to get there, to get to that stage where what's right for yourself and you're willing to stand up and look after you at the end of the day. And what you're doing, what you're creating, the passion that you have for the industry as well is incredible. And I can only imagine that you're going to keep going with it. Apart from getting onto Della's Instagram page, Perfectly Queer's Instagram page, and hitting the follow button on both of those brilliant pages, is there anything else that the listener and I can do to support you on your journey?
Word of mouth is how I did everything as Della, and it's how I want to continue everything with Perfectly Queer as well. And just remember us. I guess, as weird as that sounds, the social media stuff, unfortunately, it's just the way of the world. A follow, a like, a share, God, even a dick pic would be great. To anyone that's listening, Della loves any of that kind of stuff. But any of that is great. Just even, when you're in the next office meeting and they are talking about, oh, well, we're doing, because every workplace has changed now and it's very hard. It's going to be hard for these corporations to get people all together at once. Oh, hey, let's do that same Christmas party we've done for the last 20 years because that's our business. Be that person that's been like, hey, why don't we get some really amazing talent in the room? You don't have to specify them as queer talent. They're just talent, really, at the end of the day. And reach out and see what we can do. Because I do also have people reach out and go, hey, we want to do a birthday event, but we want it to be a bit different. And I'll be like, well, wouldn't it be great to have a drag queen pop out of the cake and have a bongo player to play along with the DJ and do some live music interacting with the DJ set that's happening? Great. And we can do those kind of crazy things. So keep a brother and a sister in mind and help keep the world perfectly queer. Oh, I like that. Yeah, I should put that on something. You know, so just support each other, support people. Della's got merchandise on her website.
Oh, it's really good too. I've seen hoodies,
Yeah.
I've seen tumblers, I've seen all sorts of fun things, stickers.
Book, which is so
brilliant.
great. I love a notebook and I'm obsessed with stationery. So yeah, all this great stuff, but also just not just me, but just anyone around you that might be a creative type that might be struggling a little bit. Any of that support is really appreciated and it just makes you feel good.
Yeah, there's that meme or, some sort of quote that flicks around the gram a lot. When you buy from a small business, a real life person does a happy dance. And, you might see that and scroll by and be like, whatever, I've seen that before. But like it quite literally, like the email comes in, you feel excited, you're so happy, you feel so proud of yourself. It really does make a difference supporting people doing great things, small businesses. I couldn't agree more.
My God, yes. Just drop the assumptions and the kind of stigma of queer people or drag or anything like that. Everyone's just out to be positive, to have fun. If you saw a drag queen a couple of years ago yell abuse at you in a nightclub at 3 a.m., we're not all like that, darling. Supporting all, because we're all small businesses, supporting us all and getting involved is just really super important. And it's just nice. It's lovely to get some interaction and a like or a follow or some merchandise. And I literally do that. On the weekend, someone bought a tumbler and I was like, oh my God, who is this? And I'm like on Instagram, I'm trying to find who they are and I find them and I message them. I'm like, thank you so much for ordering this. Oh my God, I love it. And I handwrite a note in every single thing that gets ordered. And there's always bonus stickers. And it's the effort that goes into it. Even my packaging is all pink. The tissue paper is pink. I spray some perfume in there. Like it's a real moment.
It's so special. I'm going to make sure that we've got the links to all of your things in the show notes. When we publish this as well, it'll go on the gram. It'll go everywhere.
Let's do a discount code. Let's do a discount code for some merch.
Of course we can.
Podcast. Yes. We'll work that out offline, but put that in the comments as well, what the exclusive discount code is. Oh, I love that.
It's been such a pleasure to spend this time with you, face-to-face, computer-to-computer, being able to hear your story in this way. It's inspiring, it's exciting, and I couldn't be happier for you. So thank you for sharing so openly with me today.
You're a sweetheart. Thank you for doing this as well. And I think that this is just such a brave and smart thing to do, to share stories, because at the end of the day, we have one thing in common, and that is that we are human beings and we've all got a story. And I think that it's wonderful that you have taken this initiative to do this. So good on you.
Thank you. I appreciate you. It's been such a pleasure. And I can't wait to see you shine your light and glitter your glitter all over the place for years to come.
To get your hands on some Della merch, the perfect reminder that you never know where life could lead you if you just trust yourself into something new, head to dellaxo.com and use the special code TAKE15. Enjoy your merch.
Thank you for listening to Unemployed and Afraid, the stories of starting over with your host, me, Kim Curtin. If you liked the episode and are keen to hear more, please hit the follow button and leave a review. And let's keep the conversation going on Instagram @unemployedandafraid, where there's more goodies and links to today's show notes. See you there.